Breaking news, Nigerians. Tinubu wins again at Supreme Court. Yes, the Supreme Court has thrown out the appeal of the Aligned People's Movement against the election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the president of this country. And then the APM before now had challenged the election of Tinubu, challenged Tinubu's candidacy on the basis that his running mate Kasim Shettima was nominated by two parties. However, the APM's counsel, Chukwuma Ome, a senior lawyer, withdrew the appeal after the 7 justices of the Apex Court indicated that it was futile and baseless. The court reminded him that it had already ruled out on the same issue of double nomination in favor of Tinubu in the previous appeal by the PDP. The presiding justice, Justice Iyan Okoro, had expressed his displeasure at Ume for pursuing a matter that had no merit and would not change the outcome of the 2023 February 25th presidential election. He said that even if the court granted the APM's appeal, it would not make any difference as the party was not asking for its candidate to be declared the winner of the presidential election. The court, however, dismissed the appeal as withdrawn by Ume. Meanwhile, the court had reserved its judgment on the appeals of the Labour Party and the PDP against Tinubu's victory. The Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi filed a 50-ground notice of appeal challenging the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, which affirmed Tinubu's election. The Labour Party alleged that Tinubu was not qualified to contest the election because he did not possess a valid school certificate or its equivalent. The PDP and its presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, also appealed against the judgment of the lower court, which dismissed their petition for lacking in evidence. The PDP sought to present fresh evidence on alleged forgery of documents by Tinubu and his party, the All Progressive Congress. Now, the counsel for the Labour Party and the PDP, Dr. Levi Uzokwe-Sam, had urged the court to allow their appeals and nullify Tinubu's election. He argued that Tinubu violated the constitution and the electoral laws by presenting false information and documents on INEC, to the INEC. The counsel for INEC, Abubakar Mahmood San, for Tinubu, Wole Olanipeku San, and for the APC, Mr. Akin Olujemi San, had opposed the appeals and asked the courts to dismiss them for being incompetent and lacking in merit, lacking in substance. They maintained that Tinubu was duly elected by majority of lawful votes cast in accordance with the constitution and the electoral laws. So the 7-member panel of justice led by Justice Iyan Okoro heard the argument from both sides and reserved their judgment for a later date, though they did not give any indication of when they would deliver the verdict. But then, at the Supreme Court, some top government officials and party leaders were present at the hearing. They include the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gabajamila, the former Governor Abdullahi Ganduji. Also, we have the EFCC chair, the former EFCC chairman, Nuhu Rabudu, and the former Senate President Bukola Saraki, and also the former Governor Peter Ayodele Fayose, amongst others. So the Supreme Court has reserved judgment in the Atiku appeal and in Peter Obi's appeal to disqualify and to nullify the election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, my country people, apart from all this, there have been a lot of arguments over Tinubu's academic records. You see, there have been a lot of arguments on Tinubu's academic records, and that is where Atiku is focusing on. That is where Atiku is, focusing on his academic records. But at this point, the lawyers of Atiku, that's the lead counsel of Atiku, Chris Uche, had sought to tender the academic records released by the university, along with the disposition of the university's registrar at the Monday's proceedings. But then, in the disposition, the university clearly affirmed that Tinubu graduated from the university, but did not deny or authenticate if the copy of the certificate Mr. Tinubu submitted to INEC was actually made by the university. So these articles, allegations on Tinubu is very, very serious, and is complex because they are urging the court to admit fresh evidence, pointing that there were discrepancies in the document. So the court should adopt to receive fresh evidence, which the Supreme Court isn't ought to receive fresh evidence. But Tinubu in turn is also kicking that there should be no accepting of fresh evidence. But as it stands now, the Supreme Court would give its final verdict on this issue. So my country people, this is just it. But then the APC's lawyers, they will always urge the Supreme Court to dismiss Atiku's case, Atiku's unusual application, just for him to tender fresh evidence against Mr. Tinubu, because they are always standing on their grounds that the court would never admit fresh evidence. And then we have that of Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party, who is also challenging the elections of Tinubu, saying that Tinubu did not win the elections. The votes he got were not the actual votes. And then they asked the Labour Party for concrete evidence, but little to none were provided, so they had to trash their case. That was at the Presidential Election Petition Court until they approached the Supreme Court. So there are a lot of charges against Tinubu at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, is set to give its judgment soon. So guys, I'm dropping here. Kindly share your thoughts on this in the comment section. Thank you.